Hi everyone. So sorry I look so rough. Was in the emergency room all night with my middle child and tired still. Didn't go to work today because obviously I was there until early this morning, and now I'm at my son's school picking him up. So I figured I have about 15 minutes. I would go ahead and blog about a couple of things really quick. This is kind of off topic, but last night brought back like a lot of memories of when I was married to my children's father. This is one of the memories I have of me that kind of let me know what type of person he was as a father, even though he lies to his new wife and his friends and his family, I guess to try to make himself feel a little bit better. I don't know, but we're going to talk about the time my son was in ICU, and the parenting on both ends. That morning when we had woke up, my son was perfectly fine. There was nothing wrong with him. He was laughing, playing, eating, being a normal kid. And so me, him, my other kids, my best friend and her son at the time, we all decided to go to the park that day. I took pictures of my son. I've done all, the whole 9 yards. And we got home and fed him dinner, and then he lay down and took a nap. When my ex-husband came home, he woke up and he was having a hard time breathing. His nose was running. So I called his doctor, and she told me to bring him in the morning and that he was going to be okay. And so I kind of ignored it. I was like, okay, well, the doctor said just bring him in the morning. He was fine all day long. There was nothing wrong with him. So I thought maybe, because it was cold outside. And so I was like, maybe he's coming down with the cold from being outside. And he had a jacket on. He was weather appropriate, in his clothes. Well, anyways, so my ex-husband and I were arguing about him. And he was like, there's something wrong with him. And I'm like, no, there's not. Because as a mom, you're going to make mistakes. I was a mom that was married, but technically single, because he really didn't participate in their lives when we were married. And so I was wore out, and it was one of those, like, when you're married to somebody, you feel like you have a partner. So when he comes home, you should be able to, I guess, as you say, go off duty for just 10 minutes just to think of yourself. But anyway, so when my son started crying, we noticed that he wasn't breathing and he was turning blue. And so we took my two girls over to their grandparents' house on their dad's side. And me and him rushed him to the emergency room to find out that he had, I can't even remember what it's called, but it was a respiratory issue where his lungs were closing in and his throat was closing in. So they ended up moving him into the ICU in the children's part of that hospital. And he was on breathing treatment. He was on steroids. Nothing was working at all for him to be able to breathe. It was the most scariest thing of my life. There was a couple times when he quit breathing and they had to rush in. And it got to a point where they were medically unable to care for him if he was to legitimately quit breathing. So they life flighted him to another hospital that was better capable of doing so. So we moved him over to that hospital. Well, in between all of this, because he was in the hospital for a week, I never went home. I literally stayed at that hospital. So one night I asked, or actually I don't even think it was that night. It was during the day, I believe. But anyways, at one point I asked his father to stay at the hospital so I could go home, take a shower, because after a couple of days of not taking a shower, you start to feel really dirty. I asked him to take care of our son while I was gone. Let me get a couple of hours of sleep in my bed, because for those of you that ever stayed at a hospital, unless you're a multi-millionaire or you're Beyonce, it's not a comfortable place. They're not going to give you your own personal bed. They had a room for parents to sleep in if they wanted to, but you had to request it. And, I wasn't leaving my son's side, so I didn't really care about the bedroom, to be honest with you. But the one day I asked his dad, can you please stay up here? Let me go home, take a shower, eat a home-cooked meal. Whether it was a sandwich, I don't care. I was tired of the hospital food. And let me get a couple of hours of sleep, and then I'll be back up here. just let me get a couple of hours. And I went home, and the first thing I did was call him and ask him how my son was doing. And he told me not to worry about it. And I told him he needed to stop. Like, he needed to tell me how my son was. And he wouldn't tell me. He pretty much told me what kind of mother leaves their son in a hospital to go home and get some sleep. And I keep thinking, what kind of father has maybe spent in the last 4 days in the hospital, maybe 20 minutes? And we got into a big fight, so I couldn't sleep. So I maybe lay down for 20, 30 minutes. I tossed and turned and ended up back at the hospital because he refused to tell me how my son was doing. So once I got to the hospital, he left. And I think it's bad that he even was going to work, and he told a person he worked with, when they were like, hey, why are you here? Your son's in ICU. And his comment was, what else am I going to do? I sit at the hospital with my son? Well, yeah, that's typically what a parent does. When your child quits breathing 4 or 5 times a day and almost dies, you sit your butt at the hospital. So that way you hold his hand and know that your child knows he is loved by both parents and that both parents care. But no, not him. Like, he was never there. And then when he was there, he complained and moaned and groaned. Well, the last days, my mom, her church, like, everybody was praying for my son at this point. And so my brother was ready to hop on an airplane and fly where we were because of his position in the medical field. He would have been able to get access and find out what I'm not aware of. So that day they did a thing where they put something up his nose and they looked to see if he had blockage in his throat, what was going on, because the steroids were not working. Nothing was working. And they couldn't figure it out. So they pretty much said that morning they were going to go in and cut his chest open and see what was going on, because typically stuff works when, you're doing stuff, but nothing was working. So my mom got her prayer group together. I had my church praying. We had sorry, this truck almost hit me. We had everybody involved praying for my son. Well, that morning when he woke up, looked at me, smiled, and was almost like, what am I doing here? It was like nothing was, like it was all a joke. Like, he punked us, literally. The doctors came in, and they looked at him and they were confused. They didn't even understand how he went from not being able to breathe less than 24 hours ago to waking up with 0 issues at all. Like, nothing was ever wrong with him. I personally say that was God and all the prayers, and God hears all prayers. And I truly credited God for that. Even one of the RN nurses were like, God was on your side. Your son had a guardian angel watching over him, that they didn't want us to go in and cut his chest open because that would have left a scar for the rest of his life. And it is so funny that I remembered that last night, because I never forgot my son was in NICU. I never forgot, or ICU, sorry. I never forgot any of that. But I did forget the fact that his father wasn't there, and his father spent 0 time at the hospital when we were there. And I don't know, last night just triggered it, and it made me remember, and the fact that he tells people that I almost caused my son to die, but yet I was the one holding his hand in the hospital when all this was going down. I know this wasn't what I was going to blog about today. I don't even really remember what my purpose of my blog was going to be when I was going to pick up and start blogging. I don't remember. I'd have to go back. I'm so sorry. I'm so tired right now that I can't really function on what was going on. But I don't know, stuff like that, it just reminds me how grateful I am that I walked out of that marriage and I moved on. Just, I don't even, it's so hard to explain the feelings that you have in a situation like that. But I am blessed with my kids. My daughter is perfectly fine. Well, we went home last night, or this morning, sorry. When we went home this morning, she's fine. She's still sick, but she's going to be better. It's nothing life-threatening as of right now. I'm joking, I hope. But it should not be. She's on medicine. She's going to be okay. It's just been a long night, so I'm really tired. But overall, that was something I wanted to talk about to get it off my chest, because he when he tells people, he tries to make it seem like it was him at the hospital, him holding his hand, him caring, and it wasn't him at all. And, you know, as a mom, I have been there for everything these past almost 11 years when it comes to my children, whereas he's not been there at all. And so I wanted to kind of get that off my chest, because this is my life, and this is me blogging, and these were memories that I have and stuff that I try to, you know, not think about, not want to remember about, but unfortunately you're going to remember and you're going to think about it. And little things like last night taking my daughter to the emergency room just triggered a memory of, you know, a situation that had happened. But I think I'm going to watch my last blog and find out what I was actually going to talk about, because I don't remember. But yeah. Well, I will talk to y'all later. I'm rambling now because I'm tired. But I will pick off where I'm supposed to blog at the next time I blog. Talk to y'all later. Bye.